Welcome to New Stripe City, a YouTube channel for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and I just wanted to give my recap of the Bengals losing to the Ravens in blowout fashion. To start the game, Ryan Finley was able to get his first start of the season. For me, I think that things that he actually did well were navigate within the pocket with pressure a lot better than Andy Dalton has. He was sacked, he did fumble, and it was returned for a touchdown. But outside of that, he came in and pretty much did a decent job, but pretty much the same as what we've kind of seen from Andy Dalton as the year has gone on. I've told you guys on my podcast, Orange is the New Black, if you haven't subscribed, please be sure. Please be sure to subscribe to that. But we've said on there, Jim and myself, that Ryan Finley is not the long-term answer. So putting him out there and seeing what he has is what the Bengals should do. They definitely need to see what they have in Ryan Finley. But I think going forward long term, he's not the answer. And the Bengals need a lot of things. Obviously, the defense was gashed a lot yesterday, primarily the linebackers. In my opinion, when you look at this team, they're the weakest core on the actual team. At one point, Zach Taylor addressed the entire linebacker core themselves. Ravens tight ends had a field day. Lamar Jackson had a field day. These are all things that I said would happen on my podcast, which is why you guys should subscribe to it. Another thing that happened, which I also expected, was Hollywood Brown had a pretty decent game, and I imagined that the Bengals would struggle against him going into the game. There's no answer for Lamar Jackson. I said that before. The defense is just really in a mess right now. You talk about not only the defense but the secondary as well. Primarily, Sean Williams kind of struggled in coverage. They kind of picked on him a lot. B.W. Webb was beat several times by Hollywood Brown. So in the grand scheme of things, not the best performance for the team to put on the field with guys that are being evaluated. Jermaine Pratt got a start. He didn't really show anything of much, was actually benched for Preston Brown. So the entire linebacker room, to me, is just a complete mess at this point. You talk about the offensive line. They didn't look bad. Like, a lot of people talked about the offensive line, like, oh, if you put Ryan Finley back there, he's going to get killed. They held up pretty much for the most part of this game. Now, I don't know if that's because the Ravens lack a pass rush themselves, but they only gave up, I believe, 2 sacks on the game. So Ryan Finley had plenty of time to make some decisions in there, and it did not affect the game as it did with the outlier game of the Steelers, where they just couldn't block anybody. So the offensive line held up very well. Joe Mixon had his best game of the season. Ran for 30 times. Bengals stuck with the run. It didn't matter in this game, but it was good to see that Joe Mixon was able to get over 100 yards for this game. And I feel like if you do have 30 carries, you should. But the good thing is that they stuck with the run. They didn't get too down on it. And Joe Mixon showed that he can still be Joe Mixon. It just has to be a better blocking scheme in front of him, but he was able to do what he needed to do there. Outside of that, receivers really didn't do much. I saw some pretty good grabs by Tyler Boyd. That was good to see. He was able to kind of get himself open, and I mean, it's game one for Ryan Finley. So things that came out of this game that were good is that we were able to evaluate our talent, and we were able to keep the number one draft position, especially with Miami winning yesterday. That keeps them with 2 wins. The Bengals only have 1, so they don't have 1. I'm sorry, they have no wins. Redskins have 1 win. That's what I meant to say. So. As of now, it just seems like this is just an evaluation period for 8 games that the Bengals have switched to. Makes sense, makes perfect sense, especially after seeing Tua and Burrow take on each other. And one thing that I'll say is I did a debate about whether the Bengals should pick Chase Young or one of the quarterbacks, Burrow or Tua. So definitely be sure to give that video a watch as well. But one thing that I will say is the Baltimore Ravens are just as bad at the pass rush as the Cincinnati Bengals, and they're 7-2. They're sitting at the top of the AFC North. So that to me says that you need to get a quarterback. Lamar Jackson has completely changed the dynamics of the Ravens, and this is something that we will have to deal with for years. And this is an example of, if you get the right quarterback moving forward, there's a lot of deficiencies that you can have in your team, and I'm not saying that the Ravens have extreme deficiencies, but they do, in my opinion, have one at the wide receiver position outside of Hollywood Brown. They don't have that much of an edge rush. They don't have any linebackers at all. And they're able to still operate successfully within the NFL. So just something for you guys to chew on, just to think on. But this isn't a bad thing. It's an evaluation period. It's time for us to make sure that we keep our position for the draft. And the Ravens are just going to do their thing. There wasn't really a chance that we were really going to win this game, in my opinion. I never saw it as a win or anything. And I'd like to see a mix, possibly, if Ryan Finley continues to play horrible, maybe they shift to Jake Delgado. I don't think any of those guys are going to be the answer. I actually think Jake would actually fare well, a little bit better in this offense than Ryan would, just being that he has that arm. That was one thing that we were able to see as well. That's one thing that I said, and the reason that I gave for Ryan Finley not being the guy. He doesn't have the arm strength. It's essentially the same thing that you had with Andy Dalton, where anything that's over 20 or 30 yards, you might as well kiss it goodbye, because the accuracy completely goes down after that. And you saw that in that game. They never took any deep shots. And when you have guys like John Ross, AJ Green, you got to have a quarterback that can do that. Tua and Burrow, those are guys that can do that. But before I beat a dead horse, I just want to say, let me know what you guys think in the comments. And as usual, I'll leave you with a who day all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.